Welcome back to the Working Thesis, where we are mapping out the overarching strategy of the agent era. I am Maya. In our first episode, we established that the harness, the body of the AI, the tool-wielding system that surrounds the brain, is where the durable economic value is rapidly migrating. But if you survey the tech landscape right now, almost all the massive, world-changing breakouts are concentrated in one highly specific area: coding.
Right. If you look at Cursor, OpenCode, Aider, or Copilot, the AI tools that actually function autonomously and deliver measurable ROI today are overwhelmingly developer tools. It makes you wonder, why did AI learn to write production-grade software before it learned to plan your family vacation, negotiate a vendor contract, or design a marketing campaign? Is coding just inherently more aligned with how neural networks think?
That is the assumption a lot of people make, but my read is that it's completely backward. Coding wasn't special because it's the most important job in the world, and it wasn't special because it primarily involves logic and math. Coding was the beachhead because it is the structural equivalent of the ground floor with a loading dock. It was architecturally the easiest building for an autonomous agent to move into.
As of early 2026, and still evolving at a blistering pace, we now fundamentally understand that for an AI agent to conquer any new domain, it has to pass through what we call the two gates. Software engineering had both of these gates already built, fully paved, and standing wide open. Every other domain is currently scrambling in the dark to build them. Today, we are unpacking exactly what those two gates are and how they will dictate the future of every knowledge worker. A quick, honest note before we start. This is a thinking out loud series about where AI agents are heading. It is exploration and opinion, not advice of any kind.
We will flag the difference between what is actually shipping today and where we think things are going. This is a 2026 snapshot, and it is evolving fast, so treat it as a map, not a forecast, and go explore for yourself. Let's rigorously define the framework, the agentic loop we talk so much about, where the model thinks, acts, reads the result, and tries again, requires two non-negotiable elements to function safely without a human holding its hand. The first gate is an oracle. The second gate is a cheap output form.
Exactly. Let's start with the oracle. An oracle is simply an automated, perfectly objective judge. It's a system that can look at the agent's work and instantly say, yes, this is mathematically correct, or no, this is broken, and here is exactly why it failed. Without an oracle, the agent is flying blind. It has no idea if it's hallucinating a brilliant solution or just hallucinating garbage.
And the second gate is the cheap output form. This is the actual artifact the agent produces in the real world. For the agentic loop to run fast and cheap, the cost of making a mistake has to be near absolute zero. The artifact needs to be easily editable, instantly revertible, and cost practically nothing to generate.
When a domain has both of these things, a cheap oracle to instantly check the work, and a cheap output form that can be overwritten without consequence, the agent can loop thousands of times a minute. It can brute force its way to the right answer. If it lacks either of those gates, the agent hits a brick wall. It has to stop the loop and wait for a human to give it a thumbs up.
So let's look at why coding was the perfect, frictionless fit. Software developers have unknowingly spent the last 30 years building the most rigorous, unforgiving, automated oracles in the world. Compilers, linters, unit tests, continuous integration suites. All of these are objective judges just waiting to be queried.
It's a beautiful accident of history, really. When a coding agent writes a new Python function, it doesn't need to ask you, the human, if it looks good. It just asks the compiler. The compiler throws a stack trace error, the agent reads the error, modifies the code, and tries again. It has an instantaneous, machine-readable feedback loop. It can self-correct completely autonomously.
And the oracle is ruthlessly objective. The code either compiles or it doesn't. The unit test either passes or fails. There is no philosophical debate about whether the code is evocative, thought-provoking, or on-brand. The agent knows exactly what the mathematical goal line looks like.
This is the hidden secret engine behind why AI coding feels like absolute magic. It's not that the LLMs are flawless, omniscient coders on their first try. They actually make stupid mistakes constantly. But the harness catches the mistake by throwing it against the oracle, forces the agent to fix it, and hides that messy, embarrassing iteration from you. You only see the final, passing, pristine result.
The second gate coding passes effortlessly is the cheap output form. At the end of the day, no matter how complex the app is, software is just text. It is just strings of characters sitting in a plain text file. It costs nothing to generate, and it costs nothing to delete.
You can use Git to branch the code, let the agent destroy it completely while trying to fix a bug, and then just revert the commit in half a second. The environment is perfectly contained and perfectly reversible. You are not pouring concrete for a bridge. You are not buying a Super Bowl ad. You are just rearranging letters on a screen.
Because the output is just text, the AI's hands don't have to be very complex. The harness just needs the ability to read a file, edit a file, and run a bash command. It doesn't need to actuate a physical robot arm, and it doesn't need to spend real dollars to reserve a flight.
So you combine these two phenomenons. The agent can write text for practically free, and it has an automated, unforgiving judge telling it if the text works. That is exactly why coding went first. It had the oracle, and it had the cheap output. The environment was practically begging for a tireless agent to take over the keyboard.
Now, let's heavily contrast that with almost every other knowledge work domain. Take writing a corporate marketing strategy, designing a pitch deck, or producing a pop song. Why can't an agent just loop autonomously overnight until it finishes a perfect marketing strategy?
Because it fails the oracle gate immediately. What is the automated unit test for a good marketing strategy? It doesn't exist. Good is highly subjective, heavily dependent on human taste, and deeply tied to the messy, unquantifiable reality of human emotion.
The only true oracle for a marketing strategy is the market itself, launching it to the public and seeing if people actually buy the product. And that is a very slow, very expensive oracle. The agent can't self-correct 50 times a second because it has to stop and say, "Hey, human, does this vibe with our brand voice?" It requires a human in the loop to act as the subjective judge.
And when you look at domains like travel planning, logistics, or purchasing, you fail the output gate. Planning a trip requires irreversible, high-stakes actions in the real world. Booking a non-refundable hotel room isn't just text on a screen. It has real-world consequences. The cost of a mistake is no longer zero. It's $500 on your credit card.
So the agent hits a massive wall. Without an automated oracle, it needs human taste. Without a reversible output, it needs human permission. That is why the agentic loop, for a long time, stalled out right at the edges of software engineering.
But here is the critical pivot, and why the landscape in 2026 is so incredibly exciting. The harness core, the React loop that tirelessly coordinates the context, the memory, and the tools, is actually entirely domain-agnostic.
Exactly. The underlying loop doesn't care if it's writing Python or drafting a real estate contract. To make the agent generalize to a brand new domain, you don't need to reinvent the loop itself. You just have to swap out the tools it has access to, plug in a new oracle if you can find or invent one, change the surface area where the human interacts with it, and establish a new trust bar.
The core architecture is completely portable, and that realization has kicked off a massive, frantic race to port the developer harness into the domains of everyday knowledge workers. The tech giants are aggressively building the ramps to get the agents out of the loading dock and up onto the other floors of the corporate building.
We are seeing the harness cleanly decoupled from the IDE and injected directly into the tools the rest of the world uses. And there is no clearer, more impactful example of this than what Microsoft rolled out this year for its billion-plus enterprise users.
Right. Let's talk about Microsoft Office Agent Mode, which became generally available in early 2026. This was the moment the coding agent finally grew up, put on a suit, and walked into the boardroom. Microsoft basically took the core agent loop and embedded it directly inside Word, Excel, and PowerPoint.
What's fascinating about agent mode is how it perfectly proves the portability of the harness. It uses the Microsoft Agent Framework, meaning the Office agent is fundamentally built on the exact same architecture as the Copilot coding agent. And they use MCP, the Model Context Protocol, combined with Microsoft Graph as the universal toolbus to access all your emails and files.
And interestingly, they aren't just blindly using their own models. Office Agent Mode uses Anthropic models under a multi-model approach. They are choosing the absolute best brain for the job, but routing it through their proprietary harness and their proprietary surface. The agent loop runs right inside your document.
In Excel, the oracle actually exists. It can write a complex financial formula, check if it errors out, and fix it. In Word, the oracle is much softer, so it relies heavily on you for verification. But let's extrapolate this. This next part is speculation, but it shows where the wind is blowing. If an oracle doesn't exist, we will manufacture one. Here's me thinking out loud. Imagine, hypothetically, a legal team in 2030 negotiating an incredibly complex M&A deal.
I love this. They don't have an automated oracle for, is this a good deal yet? So what do? They build a massive simulation environment. The harness takes the draft contract and runs 10,000 hostile, simulated negotiations against it using adversarial agents in a matter of seconds. The simulator becomes the manufactured oracle. It finds every single loophole before the human lawyer ever signs the paper.
Exactly. We are bringing the picks and shovels from the coding gold rush, the testing frameworks, the simulations, the compilers, and adapting them for accountants, marketers, and lawyers. We are figuring out how to manufacture oracles to force those gates open. Let's recap. Software engineering was the first domain to be fully automated by agents, not because it was inherently special, but because it had two wide-open gates, a cheap, automated oracle to rigorously judge the work, and a cheap output form that was easily reversible.
Other domains hit a wall because evaluating a good essay or a good song is highly subjective, and taking real-world actions like booking a trip is irreversible and expensive. But the core harness that drives the agent is completely domain-agnostic.
Which is why we are now seeing the same agentic loops being embedded into general-purpose surfaces like Microsoft Office Agent Mode in early 2026, using standardized protocols like MCP and Microsoft Graph, and why industries will soon begin manufacturing their own simulation oracles.
But drafting a Word document or writing an Excel formula is still fundamentally just generating text on a screen. What happens when we want the agent to actually do things in the real world? How does it interact with external companies, spend real money, or generate rich media?
That is the next great frontier. If coding was the beachhead, final execution is the mainland. In our next episode, we are exploring how agents are growing richer hands, securely connecting with each other, and learning how to safely spend your money. We are moving toward rich final execution. See you next time.
And that is us thinking out loud for today. If this gave you a clearer map of where the agent era is heading, do us a favor and subscribe. It genuinely helps more curious people find the show.
We are figuring this out right alongside you, one episode at a time. So hit follow, and we will see you in the next one.